So this is a famous psychological demonstration, but many of you might not have seen it. You read that as ABC. You read this as 12, 13, 14, but the B and the 13 are physically identical. So this tells us something quite important about the way that associative machinery and System 1 work on new stimuli. Everything is made coherent. So in the context of letters, that ambiguous stimulus is going to be read as a letter. In the context of numbers, it is going to be read as a number. What is quite important, there are two aspects here. One is the coherence, and the other is that you're not aware of the ambiguity. The ambiguity is suppressed. That is, you just get one interpretation. In this case, it's a coherent interpretation, and that is the way that the system works. It generates associatively coherent representations or reactions to situations.
The way I discuss it in the Black Swan is I talk about the domain of dependence, about the Reebok Club in New York, where people go get in their gym clothes and then take the elevator to the Stairmasters, and then get on the Stairmasters and log their 112 stories, and then stop and then take a log of it. Okay, so you have domain dependence, people not recognizing something in the texture of real life.
Associative memory, or System 1, is also the repository of our world knowledge. So when an event occurs, our reaction to it is informed by a lot of things that we know. And I'll give you my favorite example of this. This is, people are listening to sentences while the events in their brain are recorded, and an upper class male British voice says, I have large tattoos all down my back. And approximately 3/10 of a second later, the brain responds with a characteristic signature of surprise. This is astonishing if you stop to think about it. I mean, there was that voice. You have to classify it as an upper class British voice. Now, upper class British men don't have tattoos down their back. Something is odd, and you get a surprise reaction. You get a mobilization of System 2, because System 2 is the one that pays attention. Surprise calls attention to the event. You know, a male voice saying, I believe I'm pregnant. Of course, same thing. So this system holds our world knowledge and uses our world knowledge to classify situations as normal or abnormal. And it does this at top speed. And it updates very quickly. Well, I'll tell you a story about updating. It updates what it considers normal. Now, this is an anecdote. You're free not to believe me. I believe it because it's a personal experience. We were some years ago on vacation in Australia in a resort that has all of 40 little villas. And in the evening, we go to have dinner, first evening, and we meet a psychologist from Stanford. Surprise, coincidence, and we're very delighted to meet each other. Now, 2 weeks later, we're in a theater in London, and it goes dark, and we watch, and then the lights come back on, and next to me, same guy. Now, the important point is that I was less surprised the second time than the first. Because, oh, John, he's the guy I meet everywhere. I mean, it takes very little time to create what we call a norm. So one event, the second event links back to the first. If I had met anybody else, that is what's impressed me. If I had met anybody else, I would have been more surprised. That's odd. If you think about it statistically, it is crazy. But in fact, it was very clear that, and I wouldn't say that I consciously expect to see John wherever I go, but I, if I'm going to meet someone, I'd be prepared to meet John.
I struggled for a lot of my life to have certain material and social successes, And when I achieved those material and social successes, or at least beyond the point where they didn't matter as much to me anymore, I realized that my peer group and a lot of the people who were around me, and the people who had achieved the similar successes and were on their way to achieving more and more successes, just didn't seem all that happy. And in my case, there was definitely hedonic adaptation. I'd very quickly get used to anything. So it led me to the conclusion, which seems trite, that happiness is internal. And so then that set me on a path of starting to work more on my internal self, and realizing that all real success is internal and has very little to do with external circumstances.
Now, I've mentioned something about causal thinking, and I want to give you some sense of how that works. So it's a question, which is more probable, that a mother has blue eyes if her daughter has blue eyes, or that a daughter has blue eyes if her mother has blue eyes. Now, again, as in the bat and ball, there is an intuitive response. And the intuitive response is that it's more probable that a daughter has blue eyes if her mother has blue eyes than the other way around. If you stop to do the math on the assumption that the incidence of blue eyes are the same in the two generations, the probabilities are strictly equal. But even before you do the math, your reasoning flows along causal lines. Your thinking flows along causal lines. This happens intuitively. It's not, and one of these feels okay. It feels more coherent, and the coherence that we experience can be turned into a judgment of probability. That is, the confidence that we experience is a judgment of probability.
Now let me leave you with a story from Nassim Taleb's Black Swan, which illustrates this tendency of thinking in causal lines. One day in December 2003, when Saddam Hussein was captured, Bloomberg News flashed the following headline at 13:01. US Treasuries rise. Hussein capture may not curb terrorism. Whenever there is a market move, the news media feel obligated to give the reason. Half an hour later, they had to issue a new headline. As these US Treasury bonds fell in price, Bloomberg News had a new reason for the fall: Saddam's capture. The same Saddam. At 13:31, they issued the next bulletin. US Treasuries fall. Hussein capture boosts allure of risky assets. So it was the same capture explaining one event and its exact opposite. Clearly, this can't be. These two facts cannot be linked. It happens all the time. A cause is proposed to make you swallow the news and make matters more concrete. Any conceivable cause can do. End of quote. Daniel Kahneman also talked about this in his book Thinking Fast and Slow. He wrote, Hussein's capture was the major event of the day, and because of the way the automatic search for causes shapes our thinking, that event was destined to be the explanation of whatever happened in the market on that day. All headlines do is satisfy our need for coherence. And finally, on the context dependence of our minds, Nassim Taleb wrote in his book Antifragile. This lack of translation is a mental handicap that comes with being a human, and we will only start to attain wisdom or rationality when we make an effort to overcome and break through it. And if you want to go over the main takeaways of both of these classics, I recommend you to check out Shortform, which is my favorite website for books, study guides, and takeaways. And you can use my affiliate link shortform.com/pickingnuggets to get a 5-day free trial and a 20% discount on the annual subscription. You can also find the link in the description below.